Hi second graders, I am here with you on this Tuesday reading out of our Journeys book. So you have a copy of this book at home. This week our story is The Mysterious Tadpole. It is on page 385. 300s, 810s, 51s, 385. So I want you to go find your book, have it in front of you, read along as I read it out loud so we can do our this week's selection together. So The Mysterious Tadpole by Stephen Kellogg. If you like this story by him, look him up because he has lots of really silly stories and he's a really fun author to read. And I also have to tell you that last week, actually a few weeks ago, I have found with my kids some tadpoles and we hope that they turn into frogs and not what happens in this story. So let's read what this story is about. The Mysterious Tadpole. So I'm starting on page 385. As I turn a page, you turn a page so you can be on the same page that we're on. "Greetings, nephew," cried Lewis's Uncle McAllister. "I brought a wee bit of Scotland for your birthday." "Thanks," said Lewis. "Look, Mom and Dad, it's a tadpole." Lewis named him Alfonso and promised to take very good care of him. Lewis took Alfonso to school for show and tell. "Class, here we have a splendid example of a tadpole," exclaimed Miss Shelbert. "Let's ask Lewis to bring him back every week so we can watch it become a frog." Miss Shelbert was amazed to see how quickly Alfonso grew. "Maybe it's because he only eats cheeseburgers," said Lewis. When Alfonso became too big for his jar, Lewis moved him to the kitchen. "He's the perfect pet," said Lewis. Lewis and Alfonso loved to play games. "Be careful, Lewis," said his mother. "The living room is not a soccer field. Something is going to get broken." And she was right. That same day, the soccer ball slammed into Aunt Tabitha's antique lamp. "This tadpole is out of control," said Lewis's mother. "Something must be done." "It won't happen again," promised Lewis. "I'll take Alfonso to obedience school." As we read this, see if you can find some clues that Alfonso is not really going to turn into a frog. Find clues that say, I don't think this is a regular tadpole. Okay, you're going to be writing about those tomorrow. So as we read it, listen for those clues. The only animals at the obedience school were dogs. Some of their owners stared at Alfonso suspiciously. "Pretend you're a dog," whispered Lewis. Alfonso tried to bark, but it sounded like a burp. Hold on a minute," said the trainer. "What kind of dog is this?" "He's a hairless spotted water spaniel from Scotland," explained Lewis. Alfonso quickly learned to sit, stay, and retrieve. He graduated at the top of his class. "My parents will be so pleased," said Lewis. But Lewis's parents were not pleased when Alfonso outgrew the sink and had to be moved into the bathtub. "The shower is too crowded," complained Lewis's father. "The bathroom is a mess," complained Lewis's mother. Okay, now I'm on page 392. 392. At least Lewis's classmates enjoyed Alfonso, who was still making weekly visits. "Wow, show and tell is more fun than recess," they yelled. But one day Miss Shelbert decided that Alfonso was not turning into an ordinary frog. She asked Lewis to stop bringing him to school. By the time summer vacation arrived, Alfonso had outgrown the bathtub. "We could buy a parking lot next door and build him a swimming pool," suggested Lewis. "Be sensible," said Lewis's parents. "Swimming pools are expensive." "We're sorry, Lewis, but this situation has become impossible. Tomorrow you'll have to take your tadpole to the zoo." "But I can't put my friend in a cage," cried Lewis. That night, Lewis was very sad until he remembered that the gym in the nearby high school had a swimming pool. Lewis hid Alfonso under a carpet and smuggled him inside. He snuck him inside. That's what smuggle means. He snuck him inside. "Nobody uses this place during the summer," whispered Lewis. "You'll be safe here." After making sure that Alfonso felt at home, Lewis said goodbye. "I'll be back tomorrow with a big pile of cheeseburgers," he promised. Lewis came every afternoon to play with Alfonso. In the mornings, he earned money for the cheeseburgers by delivering newspapers. The training continued as well. Lewis would say, "Alfonso, retrieve!" And Alfonso would succeed every time. As summer vacation passed, Lewis became more and more worried about what might happen when the high school students returned. After his first day of classes, Louis ran to the high school. He found the gym bustling with activity. The swim team was headed for the pool. "Stop!" cried Louis. "On your mark," bellowed the coach. "Get set." "Excuse me, sir," said Louis. "Go!" roared the coach. Alfonso rose to the surface to welcome the swimmers. "It's a submarine from another planet," shrieked the coach. "Call the police! Call the Navy!" "No, it's only a tadpole," said Louis. "He's my pet." The coach was upset and confused. "You have until tomorrow," he cried, "to get that creature out of the pool." Now I'm on page 398. 398. Make sure you're on that same page. Let's see what happens next. Louis telephoned his friend Mrs. Severs, the librarian, and asked for help. "I'll be right there," she said. Miss Severs rushed to meet Louis at the high school. When she saw Alfonso, she was so startled that she dropped her purse in the water. "Retrieve!" said Louis, and Alfonso did. Where did this astounding animal come from?" cried Miss Severs. "It was a birthday gift from my uncle," Louis replied. Miss Severs telephoned Uncle McAllister. "Oh, that wee tadpole," he said. "Why, he came from the lake nearby. It's the one folks call Loch Ness." "Brace yourself, Louis," Miss Severs said. "I believe your uncle has found the Loch Ness monster." "I don't care," cried Louis. "Alfonso's my friend, and I love him." He pleaded with Miss Severs to help him raise enough money to buy the parking lot so he could build a swimming pool for Alfonso. Suddenly, Miss Severs had an idea. We're on page 400. Suddenly, Miss Severs had an idea. "Long ago, a pirate ship sank in the harbor," she said. "No one has ever been able to find it or its treasure chest. Perhaps we can. The next morning, they drove to the harbor, rented a boat. "This is a treasure chest," cried Louis. "Retrieve!" Alfonso disappeared under the water and returned with the chest. It was filled with gold and jewels. "Let's buy the parking lot and get to work," cried Miss Severs. Louis's parents were shocked to see a construction crew in the parking lot. "Louis," they cried, what in the world is going on here?" "Alfonso found a pirate ship," explained Louis, "and we used part of the gold to buy this present." Louis's parents were shocked again. "Tickets for a vacation cruise to Hawaii?" they gasped. "And," said Louis, "you don't have to worry about us because Granny has agreed to babysit." They hugged Louis and they kissed Alfonso. "How soon can we leave?" they cried. "Immediately," said Louis. Okay, so he found the treasure chest. Alfonso retrieved the treasure chest. They used part of it to build a swimming pool and a building for Alfonso to live in, and part of it to buy a gift of sending Louis's parents, to Hawaii. Wow. What would you do with your treasure chest? After you give Alfonso home, what would you do with the rest of it? And that would be a fun thing to write about. Page 405. By the time Louis's parents returned, the swimming pool was being enjoyed by everyone in the city. A week later, Louis said, "Alfonso, tomorrow's my birthday, which means that you have been my best friend for a whole year." The next day, Uncle McAllister arrived for the party. "Greetings, Louis, my lad," he exclaimed. "I've come with a curious stone from the hills of Scotland. Happy birthday." "Wow, thanks," said Louis. And suddenly, the stone began to tremble and crack. Sounds to me like that's a whole different story. Maybe you can be the one to write it. Have a good week. Bye, second graders.